it later.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning. I am Sydney, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm with Amanda, and we're just going to chat today and just kind of get to know each other. Just hear Amanda's story, and she's one of our members in the Rooted Cafe. And we've talked back and forth for a while, and I really love her. She's very sweet and wonderful. So I just wanted to share her all with you. So, Amanda, I'll let you take the floor and just tell us a little bit about you and your story and how you came to Torah and all the things.
Okay. I'm Amanda. I am a wife to Richard and a mother to 5 children, Xavier, Zoe, Caleb, Ari, and Jesse. Let's see how we came to Torah. So that was in 2016. Well, okay, so actually it was about an 8-year journey before I finally got to the place where I made the decision. Abba had really been drawing me. Like, I can look back now and see where he would point verses out to me, and I would ponder in the middle of a church service. I'd keep reading from what the pastor read, and then I'd see, like, for example, in Romans, where Paul says, does that mean we don't keep the law? Heaven forbid. We uphold the law. And I'm like, wait a minute, but we don't uphold the law, and so why don't we? And then I'd be sitting in a church service, not really listening anymore to what the pastor was saying, but wait,
this is different.
And then, the whole Christmas thing, he was our last year keeping Christmas. I had gotten to the point where we didn't even have a tree, but we still celebrated Jesus's birth, even though I knew it wasn't his birthday. But we did the whole happy birthday Jesus thing, and so it kind of just all culminated. We moved halfway across the country, and so we didn't have our normal friend group and family to kind of pull us to continue keeping those holidays. And we really, honestly, we watched Sunburned, which I know is not even on, it's not even accessible anymore because it's not solely based in truth, but it was the catalyst for us. And so ultimately it put us in a position of, well, we're not doing that anymore. So what are we going to do? And how do we worship him the way that he wants to be worshiped? And I was like, well, I know that there are these feasts in the Old Testament. I guess we could do those. I don't really know how, but I guess we could do that. And that was in August. And I quickly realized that the fall feasts were in September. And oh my gosh, I don't know what we're doing. And so I really quick, I spent, days and days just pouring through whatever I could find on the internet of how to do this. And so, fall of 2016 is when we kept our first feasts, and that snowballed into Shabbat and eating clean, tzitziot, all of that. So
what has been your biggest, I guess, struggle with it all, if you don't mind?
Struggle with keeping Torah, or just in general?
Both. Why not both?
So I would say my biggest struggle with keeping in Torah is our lack of discipleship, really. Is there's no one to kind of come up under and show you how to walk this thing out, right? And so when I read the Great Commission, go out into all the world and preach the gospel, but it also says to make disciples. And how do we make disciples? And I felt I don't know how to do this. That's probably my biggest struggle with all of it, is feeling like I don't know what to do. But with faith in general, I would say that the thing that's tested my faith the most would be my youngest son, Jesse. When he was born, literally during birth, his cord prolapsed. And so what that means is his cord came out before his head, And so his head was compressing his cord, which was blocking oxygen and blood flow. And I was at a birth center. So I was obviously an emergent transfer, which took extra time. And so when he was born, when he was born, he made no respiratory effort, so he didn't breathe. And there was seizure-like activity. And so he was intubated and went to the NICU. And we didn't really know if he was going to make it. So it was hard, like you think you're going to lose your child. But everything was great up until it just wasn't, like everything was fine. And then everything wasn't, and you don't know. And so he was, it's called therapeutic hypothermia, which is basically where they cool the body to slow organ function, to kind of give the brain time to heal. And they do that for 3 days, and then they warm them back up to normal body temperature and kind of see how it goes. So even during that the first day was we didn't know if he was going to make it. But on the second day, he was starting to breathe over the vent. So he was initiating his breaths. By the end of that day, he was opening his eyes, and they do keep them sedated because, all the tubes and really they just want the whole body to rest. But so even with the sedation, it's not like he was like wide awake, but he was opening his eyes and he would look at us. And so we knew we were past that biggest hurdle of, is he going to make it? At that point, by the time they warmed him, we knew he was going to make it, but we didn't know what that was going to look like in the future. We had an MRI done, and the MRI showed, we had been praying, asking everyone to pray, and we were so firmly in faith that everything was going to be fine. Everything was going to be good. Abba is good. He's going to heal him. He's going to get through this, and everything is going to be fine, right? It's going to be hard, but, where we're at is hard, but he's going to be perfect. And when the MRI came back and showed injury to his basal ganglia and his thalamus, which are areas of the brain that control their motor processing centers, we were devastated. Like, you're believing so strongly that it's going to be clear, he's going to be good, he's doing so well, and then you're hit again with, it's likely that he's going to have some struggles, and it's hard to stay in faith when you're faced with that, but we did. It's okay, we'll get through this. It's going to be okay, we'll work through it. And then we've got doctors coming in and telling us what this means, what we're likely to see. But we faced times where I didn't know if he would ever breathe on his own. I didn't know if he would ever look me in the eye. I didn't know if he would ever know that I was there, even if he did look me in the eye, And so at that point, as devastating as it was also, it's okay, we'll get through this. We'll do whatever we need to do. Ava is still good, and we will overcome, right? He was in the NICU for 3 weeks and 5 days. He had lost because even something as simple as eating is controlled by motor function. He had lost his suck, swallow, breathe reflex. So at 2 weeks old, he still wasn't taking anything orally. He couldn't coordinate a suck to get anything out of a bottle. And as much as I wanted to stay in faith that we would get there, I also couldn't keep leaving my baby at the hospital every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to bring my baby home. My husband was like, we're not having surgery. We will wait it out. We'll keep working on this. And I was like, I can't leave my baby here anymore. Like, I need to get my baby home, and I need to do whatever we need to do to get my baby home.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do a feeding tube, G-tube, because he already had a feeding tube, but OG tubes and NG tubes are temporary. They won't, they're not a good long-term option, right? Mm-hmm. And so at 3 weeks old, he had his G-tube surgery, and 5 days later we came home, and I thought everything was going to be great. We were going to work through this, and it absolutely was not great. That first year, we dealt with constant screaming.
Big deal.
Stuff like that. My husband came running in for the suction pump because he just puked.
Oh no. If you need to go, I mean, if you need to go, okay.
He's got it under control. That's our life, though. But so, yeah, that first year, I knew we were going to face a lot of struggles, but I had no idea how long and how hard those struggles were going to be. So one thing that they don't warn you about most of the time is with a brain injury, a lot of times they can have something called neurostorming, and it's where their brain is trying to make connections and it just can't. And so it kind of sends everything off the charts. And so constant screaming, constant what we call posturing. So Jesse has dystonia. He has CP. He has a type of CP that's actually not very common. But the type of posturing he would do was his whole back would arch, and his head would kind of go back, and his legs would stick straight out, like his toes pointed straight out. And so if you can sit for a minute and imagine, you can't nurse your baby. You can't give him a pacifier. You can't do all the things that you've done with all your other kids to comfort them. All you can do is hold them. Sorry.
No.
I didn't expect to cry.
No, I'm over here trying to keep it together, so you're not alone.
And you just feel helpless. And you don't know how to help them. And you wonder, why? I never questioned that God was good. He is always good. But why? And it took, probably about 1.5 years before we finally started getting our heads above water with that. On top of his brain injury, we got home and he started vomiting almost constantly. We went through, probably 10 different formulas because my body wouldn't produce for a pump. So I wasn't able to pump and give him breast milk. And I have another child who deals with extensive food allergies, and I just knew he was allergic to dairy, and that was a big problem. His eczema was so bad. His skin was so cracked and tight and weeping, and no doctor would listen to me. And he was about 2.5 months old. And I went into the pediatrician and I didn't even ask for a referral. I said, I want a referral to allergy and I want a referral to dermatology. And I mean, his skin was so bad, he couldn't deny me the dermatology referral. He's like, yeah, I'll give you a referral to dermatology. But in the 15-minute appointment, I had to say 4 times that I wanted a referral to allergy. And finally, after the 4th time, he was like, well, I'll give you the allergy referral, but not because I think they'll do anything, just because you want it. And I looked at him and I said, that's fine. I'll email him when we get home because I know him. We have an allergist. And I was right. He was allergic to dairy. And so that kind of was an added issue that complicates our life, right? Not just for him, but for our family. Because that was not an allergy we dealt with my daughter. So now we've got another allergy added on top. But it contributed, it was a contributor to everything that his little body was dealing with. And so again, with that, it was like, why? It's so unfair, like he's already dealing with so much. Why does he have to have food allergies on top of it? Like, why, God? Why did you allow this?
Yeah.
I will honestly say though, through the first, Jesse's 3, he was 3 in November. And through the first 2.5 years, though I questioned why, I also knew that I was never going to have an answer to that question. Like we're never going to know truly why and what his purposes are for allowing us to go through this. But I knew that he had a purpose, and I stood firm in that. And I knew that as hard as it is, he was going to use it. And sorry. But about maybe 6 months ago, I got angry. And I've never in my life, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, a lot of different trials. And about 6 months ago, I got angry with God. And I was like, we were dealing with vomiting yet again. And his vomiting is a lot better than it was that first year. It's not constant, but when we have occasional vomiting, but when we have like really bad spells of vomiting, it gets really bad. And to watch your child go through that it's a lot like that first year of there's nothing I can do, like I just want to make it better and I can't make it better. And I remember his little bed is right over here. We've got him in a toddler bed in our room still. And I remember sitting next to him as I had just gotten him to sleep. And I was just mad. I was like, why? Like, why do you allow this for him? And he started to speak to me. And I cut him off. And I said, I don't want to hear it. And he didn't keep talking to me. He was quiet. And I was immediately terrified at what I had just done, number one. It's like talking back to your parents, but on like an infinitely bigger scale.
Yeah.
And I was terrified that he was never going to speak to me again. But our Abba is not like that.
Yeah.
But he gave me time. But in that time, I was terrified because, oh my gosh, you're not speaking to me, even though I told him not to, right? but he has, we've reconnected.
Yeah.
But it's been hard. It's been a test of faith, in ways that I thought I had faith before, right?
Yeah.
But, and I say this very gently, but people of faith sometimes have a way of saying things that sometimes they don't even say it gently. Sometimes they just flat out throw it out there, but they insinuate that if you deal with health struggles or if you deal with things like disability, there's a reason. Either you were in sin or you didn't have enough faith, whatever, and this, I would argue that probably before I had Jesse, I might have even believed that inside somewhere, like I don't think I would judge anyone for, their own struggles, but I would have believed that, in what we deal with, my own body or maybe whatever. But having Jesse and walking through this journey of disability with him and medical complexity has allowed me to see that this is a deeper level of faith than I ever knew I needed, to stay faithful. Sorry.
No.
To stay faithful and to know that God is good no matter what is hard. Like you just want to get mad.
Yeah.
And some people, I have had times in this journey where I can honestly say, I understand why people walk away from their faith. Because it's hard to reconcile. It's hard to see your child suffer and reconcile that God is still good.
Mm-hmm.
Even in them. It's hard to know that he allows these things to happen, but still loves us beyond anything we can even imagine.
And your child.
Wow. And your child. Yeah, for sure. And so, I would say that really has been my biggest struggle through my faith walk and continues to be my biggest struggle. But he is faithful even when we're not. And I see so much fruit in scriptures like in Romans where it talks about trials produce perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. Right. And so I've been through a lot in my life, more than most people I know. People bring up things that they've been through, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that. I've been there. And I used to wonder why, why do some people have to go through so much more, seemingly at least, than others? But I can definitely see now through these trials in my life how that's built perseverance, and each trial becomes easier to navigate.
Yeah.
And it builds character, and that character does produce hope. Like these big things, if we don't go through these small little things and even the bigger things, we can't handle these big things, right? And so remembering that he is faithful and staying faithful ourselves, even in the little things, and as the big things come, they don't get easier, but you're stronger. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're able to endure
Yeah.
through those harder things. So
Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable.
I totally didn't
And
expect it.
I can't, I have no words. I mean, I think that you are incredibly strong and that he is working through you. And I pray that whoever this touches, you give them the encouragement. Just what you gave. I don't even have a word for it. What you gave me today. So yes, but that's all. I don't want to keep you longer unless you have anything else you want to talk about, but I really appreciate you sharing.
I do
And
think I do.
yeah,
I do think there's one thing I do want to say.
yeah,
Because I know that there are some moms in here who are dealing with similar things. I do remember seeing there was one mom who is within that first year of a Down syndrome baby. And I know that there's another mom in here who's dealing with some feeding and hypotonic issues, but they don't have a diagnosis. So one thing that has really helped me, and I thought it was completely, I just kind of blew it off when someone told me the first time. And it was within that first week of Jesse's life, we had a developmental pediatrician come in and kind of talk to us about what the possibilities were with this particular type of brain injury. And she said, allow yourself to grieve. And I thought, he's alive. He's going to live. Like, why would I grieve? Right. And I think she knew exactly what was going through my head.
yeah,
Because she looked at me and she said, it's okay to grieve the loss of what you thought you'd have. And I want anyone who's in a struggle, not just this, maybe not just with a baby who, you know, you're facing a different parenting journey with, but anyone who's dealing with loss, even if it's not loss in terms of the death of a loved one, but the loss of what you thought you'd have, the loss of how you envisioned a certain thing to go. Allow yourself to grieve and allow Abba to take you through that grieving process, because so much healing comes when you allow yourself to really feel what you feel and not fight against those emotions that are within you, thinking they're unjustified.
yeah,
Abba created us to feel. And I fully believe that he created us to feel the emotions that we feel, because they allow us, if we allow them, they allow us to heal. And so if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling like you don't understand why, allow yourself to, don't fight against it, because all fighting against it will do, number one, is step it down and it's going to come back up again.
yeah,
And number two, it almost strengthens it, because you get this back and forth resistance. And
yeah,
just as you feel like you're getting stronger, well, so is that. And eventually it's going to bubble up. So if you allow yourself, when you have those feelings coming up, to sit with it, allow it. I compare it to waves. And so sometimes you're walking on the sand and you're not even touching the waves and you're fine, right? Sometimes you're walking on that part of the sand where the water comes up, but it's a little harder. So you feel like your footing is a bit firm, but sometimes the water brushes up and rinses over your toes, and it's okay. It's not that big of a deal.
yeah,
Sometimes you get out to about up to your knees and you're good. You're still good. But every now and then the sand rushes out from under your feet and you're like, you lose your footing a little bit, but you're still good, right? Sometimes you're out about, hip, waist deep, and you're good, but every now and then there's that wave that just knocks you over. But it's okay. Still, you're able to come back up. You make your way back up. But every now and then you get what I call rip currents. And rip currents are a real thing. If you live near the beach,
Yeah.
rip currents are a real thing. But they catch you and they suck you out. And the thing with rip currents is if you fight them, you will not get out of them. You use all your energy and you're trying so hard to get out, but you will not get out.
Yeah.
What you do in a rip current is you let it suck you out. You just ride it. Just ride it, let it suck you out. And once it releases and you come up, you're not close to the shore. You are far away from the shore. But you swim across. Don't swim straight back in. You can get sucked right back down.
Yeah.
You swim parallel to the shore, swim away. And then when you're far enough away, still out deep, but when you're far enough away, then you can safely swim back into shore. And I don't know how to translate that into emotions, but I hope that picture is painted for whoever needs it when you're in that moment and you feel those feelings sucking you down and you feel them overtaking you. Ride it. Ride it and let it take you out. Allow yourself to feel those feelings, because it is in those moments when Abba reveals to you who he truly is, in his comfort and his peace, if we will just take it to him. Take it to him and pour it out, right? Just like David did in Psalms, he poured it out, right? Abba's not afraid of our emotions, and he's not afraid for us to be real.
Yeah.
And he created us this way. And so I think that is one of the biggest things that has helped me navigate this journey, is that someone told me it's okay to grieve. And though I didn't fully understand it then, I definitely understand it now, 3 years later. So
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful and that's powerful. Yeah. So thank you very much.
you.
And let me stop all the things and